We all know the classic Snow White film that came out in 1937, but recently there has been a development where Disney's going to be remaking the classic film into a new live action remake, and it was originally slated to come out next year. However, after the Daily Wire announced their new company called Bentley, with their first live action film being Snow White and the Evil Queen, all of a sudden Disney's live action has been pushed back to 2025. And this is kind of irregular because Disney doesn't usually push back their release dates on films unless there's some serious work that needs to be redone. Now, granted, there are actor and writer strikes that are currently going on that could have some effect to the reason that it was pushed back, but I think that there's also some other things going on behind the scenes in the reasoning for this to be pushed off. See, a lot of people had already been seeing that the new Snow White film for Disney was not going to be the same as the 1937 version. There were going to be some major changes.
You said you were bringing a modern edge to it on stage. What do you mean by that?
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that
She's
is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
For example, the dwarves were not going to necessarily be dwarves because that was seen as offensive. So they changed all dwarves into being a diverse cast of different ethnicities and other types of different heights, and if you see in the picture here, they don't that look like the dwarves from the 1937 film. They also made a very big deal that Snow White wasn't going to be saved by the prince. She was going to find her own way to be a leader. It really wasn't going to be anything like the 1937 Snow White film. So, in response, Daily Wire was already in the process of making their new company Bentley with kid-friendly, no politic streaming options with movies and shows for kids. And their first live-action film that they announced was going to be Snow White and the Evil Queen, starring Brett Cooper, who, if you've ever watched YouTube, you know who Brett Cooper is with the comments section. So they announced that, and about a week later, Disney is now delaying their film release. And if you look at this new picture that we got, when they announced it, they gave us this new picture, and all of a sudden the dwarves look a lot more like what they did in 1937. Granted, they are live action, so they look a little interesting, but they don't look anything like what the first picture did. Now, there's rumors that the first picture was taken before any CGI was added, but I do think that Disney's feeling the heat. I think that they're finally seeing that people are tired of all this changing of the original stories. They like the original stories, and they don't want anything changed to them. So they're going to go a little bit more to stick to the classic than they were going to originally. And I think the other reason they also pushed it off was to save themselves from an embarrassment. Because if they released it around the same time that the Daily Wire did, I believe the reason the Daily Wire only said that they were going to release it in 2024 is because they wanted to wait to see when Disney was going to release it so they could release it at the same time and see which one did better. And I think that Disney didn't want that because they didn't want to be embarrassed. I don't think that Bentley's Snow White and the Evil Queen is necessarily going to do as well as the Snow White film in the theaters because Snow White and the Evil Queen is going to be on a streaming service behind a paywall. I don't know how well it's going to do, but I do think that it was going to do significantly better than the original Snow White in the long term. I think that the way that Disney was going with their live action adaptation, it was just going to be a box office fail. So I'm really curious to see what happens now and how Bentley responds, if they're just going to still release theirs in 2024, and if Disney's just going to keep pushing theirs off and off into oblivion. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and if you guys like this type of content, feel free to subscribe. Thank you.